pulse of him.
The first thing my new roommate did, before he even finished unpacking, was sit me down at our tiny kitchen table and tell me, very calmly, that personal space was non-negotiable. I remember the exact way he said it, like he was laying down house law. Not rude. Not aggressive. Just firm. "I've lived with enough people to know I need boundaries," Spencer said, fingers wrapped around his coffee mug like it was grounding him. "No borrowing stuff without asking. No unexpected touching. Bedrooms are private zones. I don't do blurred lines." I nodded like a reasonable adult. Because I am one. Because it all sounded fair. Because at that moment, I hadn't yet noticed the way his forearms flexed when he lifted the mug, or how his voice dropped slightly when he was serious. "Totally get it," I said. "I'm big on space too." That was a lie. But a harmless one. Or so I thought. Spencer had moved in 2 weeks after my last roommate bailed to move in with his girlfriend. I barely knew him, friend of a friend, short-term sublease that turned into a longer thing when we realized we actually liked the apartment. He was organized. Clean. Quiet. The kind of guy who lined his shoes up perfectly by the door. And the kind of guy who looked way too good in a plain white t-shirt. The rules stuck at first. We passed each other politely in the hallway. Knocked before entering shared spaces. Kept conversations light. Weather. Work. Grocery lists. But something about living together does things to proximity. You start noticing patterns. Rhythms. The way someone pads around barefoot in the morning. The way their laughter sounds different late at night. I noticed that Spencer always worked out in the evenings. Came home flushed, hoodie slung over one shoulder, skin warm from effort. I noticed because I'd be on the couch pretending to scroll while very much not pretending. Still, rules were rules. Until the night they weren't. It started with a power outage. 1 second I was microwaving leftovers, the next the apartment dropped into darkness. The fridge died with a sad little click. Outside, the city went quiet in that eerie, collective way. "Breaker probably tripped," I called out. "I'll check," Spencer replied from his room. A few minutes passed. Then more. "You good?" I asked, heading down the hallway. His door was open. He was crouched by the breaker panel in the hall closet, phone flashlight clenched between his teeth, shirt gone. Sweat darkened his skin, tracing lines down his chest. I stopped short. Not intentionally. My body just forgot how to keep going. I said intelligently. He glanced over his shoulder. And then froze. We stared at each other for a second too long. "Didn't expect an audience," he said, straightening up. "Didn't expect." I gestured vaguely. "This. A beat." Then he laughed. Quiet. Real. "It's hot in here," he said, like that explained everything. The lights flickered back on with a hum. The moment should have ended there. It didn't. From that night on, the space between us changed. Not visibly. Not in ways you could point to. But it was there. In the way he lingered in doorways. In how our conversations stretched longer than necessary. One evening, we both reached for the same dish towel. Our fingers brushed. He pulled back instantly. "Sorry," he said. "Right. Space," I replied. But his eyes didn't leave mine. Something in his expression shifted. Not hunger. Not yet. More like curiosity pressing against restraint. "I set rules," he said slowly, "because I'm bad at following them." That landed heavier than any touch. The night he broke them was quiet. No outage. No excuse. I was on the couch, half asleep, when I felt him sit beside me. Close. Too close. "Can I sit here?" he asked. "You already are." He exhaled. "Yeah." Silence settled between us, thick but calm. His knee brushed mine. Didn't move away. "I'm crossing a line," he said. "So am I," I answered. When his hand finally found mine, it was deliberate. Slow. And when everything else followed, it stayed just out of sight, heat, breath, restraint snapping quietly in the dark. We stopped before it went too far. But the rules? They were already broken. And we both knew it. I lay there afterward, staring at the ceiling, heart steady but changed, aware that living together had just become something else entirely. Not dangerous. Just inevitable. The morning after felt quieter than it should have. Not awkward, worse. Careful. I woke up early, the apartment still dim, the couch cushion creased where Spencer had sat beside me hours earlier. My hand still remembered his. The weight of it. The way he'd let go like it mattered. He didn't come out of his room right away. I made coffee I didn't really want, stared out the window, replayed everything without meaning to. Nothing had actually happened. And yet, everything had. When he finally stepped into the kitchen, he looked the same. Sweatpants. T-shirt. Hair damp from a shower. Normal. Except his eyes flicked to mine, and stayed there half a beat longer. "Morning," he said. "Hey." That was it. No rule recap. No apology. No pretending it didn't exist. We moved around each other with a new awareness, like the apartment had shrunk overnight. When he reached past me for a mug, his arm brushed my back. He didn't pull away this time. "I've been thinking," he said quietly. "Yeah?" My voice came out rougher than I wanted. "About boundaries." A pause. "About why I set them so hard." I waited. "I don't trust myself when I get close to someone," he admitted. "I either keep distance, or I forget how to." Something in my chest loosened. "Which one is this?" I asked. He smiled, small and honest. "I'm trying not to forget." That night the rain started out of nowhere, heavy, loud, insistent. We lost the TV signal. The internet lagged. We ended up sitting on the floor with takeout containers between us, backs against the couch. It felt domestic in a way that scared me. At some point, his knee pressed against mine. Stayed there. When I shifted, he shifted too, like we were calibrating. "I don't want this to be messy," he said suddenly. "I don't either." Silence stretched. Comfortable. Dangerous. "I also don't want to pretend I didn't almost kiss you last night," he added. My breath hitched. "You didn't almost." He turned to look at me. Really look at me. "Tell me to stop." I didn't. When he leaned in, it was slow. Controlled. Our foreheads touched first. Then everything else followed, soft, restrained, heat held just below the surface. Hands stayed where they were allowed. Mouths learned each other without rushing. We broke apart before it tipped too far. He rested his forehead against mine, breathing unsteady. "This is me trying." "I see that," I whispered. The days that followed blurred into something new. Shared meals. Late-night talks. Sitting too close on purpose. The rules didn't disappear, they evolved. Touch became intentional. Loaded. Never careless. One night, standing in the hallway, he reached out and tucked his fingers into the hem of my sleeve. Just enough to hold me there. "I'm not breaking anything," he said. "I'm choosing." That stayed with me. Later, alone in my room, I lay awake listening to the rain start again, heart steady but full. Whatever this was, it wasn't reckless. It wasn't secret. It was slow. Deliberate. And for the first time, the space between us didn't feel like a boundary at all, just a breath before something deeper. The first real test of the new rules came on a Tuesday night. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just real. I came home late, jacket damp from mist, brain fried from a long day. The apartment smelled like garlic and something toasted. Spencer was at the stove, sleeves rolled up, music low. "You eat?" he asked without turning. "Not yet." "Good." He slid a plate across the counter like this was normal. Like we'd always done this. Our fingers brushed when I took it. Neither of us commented. We ate standing up, shoulders almost touching. I could feel the warmth coming off him, that familiar pull I'd started cataloging instead of ignoring. "This feels domestic," I said, half joking. He huffed a laugh. "Dangerous word. Too soon? Maybe," he said, then glanced at me. "But not wrong." Later, we ended up on opposite ends of the couch, pretending the space wasn't intentional. The movie played. Neither of us followed the plot. His foot nudged mine. Stayed. I felt it everywhere. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "Yeah. Are you okay with how slow this is?" I turned to face him. "Are you?" A pause. Then, "I'm terrified." "So, yes." That honesty cracked something open. I shifted closer, careful, asking without words. He met me halfway. Our shoulders touched. That was it. But it felt like a decision. When he reached out, his thumb brushed the inside of my wrist, pulse point. Deliberate. Like he wanted me to know he felt it too. "Still okay?" he murmured. "Yeah," I breathed. The kiss that followed was deeper than the last, still controlled but harder to walk away from. Heat without urgency. Want without permission slipping. We stopped because we chose to. Because stopping mattered. He rested his forehead against mine again, eyes closed. "If we keep going," he said, "I don't want it to be a blur." "It won't be," I promised. The breaking point came days later, in the smallest way. I was folding laundry. He passed by. Paused. Turned back. "You forgot this," he said, holding one of my shirts. "Thanks." He didn't hand it over right away. Just held it. Looked at me. "I can't keep pretending this is casual," he said. My chest tightened, not fear. Recognition. "Then don't." He stepped closer. Close enough that the air changed. His hands came up to my waist, steady, grounding. When our mouths met this time, there was no question left unanswered, still censored, still restrained, but unmistakably charged. We broke apart slowly. Foreheads touching. Breathing uneven. "I'm not good at half steps," he admitted. "I don't want half," I said. That night, alone in my room, I lay awake with the steady awareness that something raw had taken shape. Not rushed. Not reckless. Just honest. And whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure: we weren't breaking rules anymore. We were writing new ones. We didn't talk about it the next morning. Not because we were avoiding it, more like we were letting it breathe. I woke to the smell of coffee already made. Spencer was leaning against the counter, phone in hand, hair still damp. He looked up when I entered, smiled like it wasn't loaded, like it was just another day. "You sleep?" he asked. "Enough." He nodded. That was it. No pressure. No retreat. It felt intentional. Like we were both proving something by not rushing to define it. Later that afternoon, he knocked on my door. Actually knocked. 3 soft taps. "Can I come in?" That mattered more than he knew. We sat on opposite ends of my bed, sunlight cutting across the floor. He rubbed his hands together like he was bracing himself. "I don't want to mess this up," he said. "By assuming. Or by holding back too much." I considered him. The tension in his shoulders. The honesty in his eyes. "Then say what you're thinking," I said. He exhaled. "I want you. But I also want to do this in a way that doesn't leave either of us guessing." Something warm settled in my chest. "I'm not guessing," I told him. "I'm choosing." That earned a smile, slow, relieved, real. The shift after that was subtle but unmistakable. We started touching in ways that weren't accidents anymore. A hand at the small of my back as he passed. Fingers laced briefly in the kitchen when no one was watching, like it was a secret, even though it wasn't. One night, we stood shoulder to shoulder washing dishes, sleeves rolled, forearms brushing. He leaned in, voice low. "Still okay?" I nodded. He kissed me there, soft, unhurried, heat contained like it meant something. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against my temple, eyes closed. Tell me if I go too far, he said. I will, I promised. That was the night I realized how much trust there was in that sentence. It happened days later, without ceremony. We were both tired. The apartment quiet. Rain tapping the windows like punctuation. We ended up on the couch again, closer than before, legs tangled in that casual way that wasn't casual at all. He traced slow patterns on my wrist. I leaned into him. Time stretched. This is me breaking my own rule, he said softly. Which one? The one about distance. He kissed me again, deeper, and everything that followed stayed just out of sight, hands, breath, the kind of closeness that doesn't need explanation. We stopped when it felt right. When it felt chosen. Afterward, we sat in the quiet, his arm around me, my head against his shoulder. No rush to separate. No need to speak. I don't regret this, he said eventually. Me either. The rain eased. The room settled. And in that calm I knew we weren't crossing lines anymore. We were building something careful and strong, one deliberate moment at a time. If living together before had felt charged, living together after felt intentional. We didn't announce anything. Didn't change labels. But the apartment learned us differently. Mornings started with shared silence and passing touches, his palm at my lower back as he reached for the fridge, my shoulder brushing his chest as I poured coffee. None of it accidental. All of it chosen. Spencer became softer in small ways. Hummed while cooking. Left his door open more often. I caught him watching me once from the hallway, expression unreadable until I smiled and he looked away, ears red. One night, I came home to find him sitting on the floor of the living room, back against the couch, nursing a beer he clearly wasn't enjoying. Long day? I asked. He nodded. Long head. I sat beside him without asking. Our shoulders met. Stayed. I don't let people see me when I'm like this, he said quietly. Like what? Unsure. I turned slightly, enough to look at him. You're allowed? That did something to him. I felt it in the way he leaned in the way his hand found my thigh and rested there, grounding, not asking for more. The night deepened slowly. We moved to the couch, closer than before, his arm along the backrest, mine tucked against his side. The TV played something neither of us followed. His thumb traced the seam of my jeans, back and forth, unhurried. Tell me if I mess up, he murmured. You're not, I said. What followed stayed mostly unspoken. Breaths shared. Heat rising and held back with effort. Hands learned limits and tested them carefully. When things edged toward too much, he stopped himself, forehead to mine, eyes closed, breathing hard. I want this, he said. I just don't want to lose myself in it. You won't, I told him. Not with me. He kissed me again, deeper, steadier, then pulled back, choosing restraint like it was strength. The next challenge came from the outside. A friend dropped by unexpectedly. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, normal on the surface, everything humming underneath. When the door finally closed, Spencer laughed, short, relieved. That was torture. Worth it, I said. Later, in the hallway, he caught my hand and squeezed once, firm and promising. No audience. No rush. That night, lying in my room alone, I listened to him move around in his. The sounds felt close in a new way, connected, not distant. I didn't need more than that. What we were building didn't need secrecy or speed. It needed patience. Choice. The courage to stay present when it would be easier to rush ahead. As sleep settled in, I realized something simple and steady forming beneath everything else. Whatever came next, we were meeting it awake, together, and without hiding. Something shifted the first time he stayed the night in my room. Not officially. Not announced. Just a quiet drift. Late conversation, lights low, neither of us wanting to be alone yet. We lay side by side on top of the covers, space between us measured and intentional, like we were still learning the shape of yes. Tell me if this is too much, he said. I turned my head toward him. Tell me if it isn't enough. That earned a breathy laugh. He rolled onto his side, facing me, forearm between us like a promise to himself. His eyes traced my face slowly, carefully, like he was memorizing. "I've never been good at letting things unfold," he admitted. "Either rush, or I retreat. And now I'm staying." That mattered more than anything else he could have said. We fell asleep without crossing anything new. His hand rested near mine, not touching, close enough to feel the warmth. I woke once in the night to find our fingers loosely tangled anyway, like our bodies had decided before our heads could interfere. Days passed. Then a week. The rhythm settled into something steady. We cooked together. Argued lightly about music. Left notes on the fridge, mundane, affectionate, real. The tension didn't disappear, it refined itself. Became trust. One evening, while brushing our teeth side by side, he met my eyes in the mirror and froze. "What?" I asked. "I forget sometimes," he said quietly, foam still on his toothbrush, "that I get to do this." "Do what?" "Choose you. Out loud." He rinsed, turned toward me, and kissed me right there, unhurried, grounded, heat carefully contained. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine, breath warm, steady. "I broke my rules," he said. "No," I corrected gently. "You rewrote them." His smile then was unguarded. Bright. Like relief. The moment it almost went too far came unexpectedly. Rain again. Always rain. We were tangled on the couch, limbs relaxed, conversation drifting. His hand slid under my shirt, warm, familiar, grounding. My breath caught. He felt it immediately. Froze. "Hey," he said softly. "Talk to me." I met his eyes. No panic. Just honesty. "I want you. I just don't want to lose what we're building." He nodded, understanding settling in like a decision already made. His hand withdrew slowly, not reluctantly, intentionally. "Then we don't," he said. "We keep choosing." Later, alone but connected, I lay in bed listening to the rain fade. The apartment felt full in a new way, not crowded, not tense. Spencer wasn't someone who broke boundaries anymore. He was someone who honored them. And as sleep took me, I realized the passion between us wasn't in what we rushed toward, but in everything we were patient enough to protect. The first real argument we had wasn't about desire. It was about space. Not the physical kind, we'd figured that out, but the emotional kind that sneaks up when you're not paying attention. It happened on a Thursday, late, both of us tired. I'd had a rough day. He'd had a worse one. We were circling each other without meaning to. "You don't have to solve everything alone," I said, sharper than intended. He stiffened. Just slightly. But I caught it. "I know that," he replied. "I just need time." The old version of me might have pushed. Might have taken that personally. Instead, I watched him breathe through it, jaw tight, eyes honest but overwhelmed. "I'm not leaving," I said more quietly. "I just don't want to feel shut out." That landed. He sat down on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it had answers. "I spent years protecting my space so hard I forgot how to let someone stand in it with me." I moved closer. Not touching. Present. "I don't want to invade," I said. "I want to be invited." He nodded slowly. "Then invite me to try again." The repair mattered more than the friction. Later that night, we stood in the kitchen with the lights off, city glow leaking through the windows. He reached for my hand, not urgently, not apologetically. Just sure. "Stay," he said. Not as a plea. As a choice. I stayed. What followed didn't need to be described to be felt. The heat between us was familiar now, grounded, deeply intentional. Kisses that lingered. Foreheads pressed together. Breath sinking until everything else faded out. Hands explored what was allowed, stopped where it mattered, resumed when trust caught up. We didn't rush past anything. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against my shoulder, exhaling like he'd been holding something in all day. I'm still learning, he said. So am I replied. That's kind of the point. The realization came quietly, the way important things often do. We were lying on opposite sides of my bed, not touching, talking about nothing, weekend plans, groceries, the stupid neighbor upstairs. At some point, the talking stopped. The silence didn't ask to be filled. Spencer rolled onto his side to face me. His hand hovered, then settled lightly at my waist. Grounding. Certain. You know, he said, voice low, steady. I set rules because I was afraid of wanting more than I could handle. I met his eyes. And now I know wanting more doesn't mean losing control, he said. It means trusting myself. And you. That stayed with me. We didn't do anything else that night. Didn't need to. His presence was enough, solid, chosen, real. As sleep pulled me under, one thought settled clearly in my chest. He hadn't just broken his rules first. He'd rewritten them because of us. And whatever came next, we were ready to meet it without flinching. The night it finally settled into place didn't feel explosive. It felt right. We came home late from a friend's birthday, too loud, too crowded, too many people asking questions we weren't ready to answer out loud yet. The apartment greeted us with quiet and dim light, the familiar hum of something safe. Spencer dropped his keys into the bowl by the door and leaned back against it, watching me kick off my shoes. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. Then, honest and steady. I'm really okay. He smiled at that. Not sharp. Not guarded. Just open. We stood there for a second longer than necessary, the night catching up with us. When he stepped closer, it wasn't urgent. It was inevitable. His hands found my waist like they already knew the way. When we kissed, it was deep but unhurried, all the heat we'd been carrying finally allowed to exist without apology. Everything that followed stayed mostly between us: breath, closeness, that heady mix of want and care. Nothing rushed. Nothing taken. Just two people choosing each other fully for the first time. When we finally pulled apart, foreheads touching, he laughed quietly. So, he said, I guess I broke every rule I set. You did, I agreed. You broke them first. We ended up in bed together, not tangled, not hidden, just close, bodies warm, legs brushing, the city breathing outside the window. His arm rested over my middle, heavy and reassuring. It felt earned. I used to think boundaries were walls, he said into the quiet. Turns out they're more like doors. I shifted closer. You still get to decide when they're open. Yeah, he said. Then softer. But I don't want to close this one. That was it. No grand declaration. No promises we couldn't keep. Just truth. The room settled around us, familiar and new at the same time. I traced slow patterns against his arm, feeling how relaxed he was, how present. This wasn't about rules anymore. It was about trust that didn't need to be tested. Morning came gently. Sunlight spilled across the bed. He stirred before I did, pressing a quiet kiss to my shoulder like it belonged there. When I opened my eyes, he was watching me, not with doubt, not with fear. With certainty. Hey, he said. Hey. No scrambling. No second guessing. Just calm. As we lay there, breathing in sync, I realized something simple and grounding. Personal space hadn't been something he needed to protect himself from me. It had been something he needed to learn how to share. And now, wrapped in quiet, warmth, and a choice we both made without pressure, I knew this wasn't a rule broken. It was a life adjusted. Carefully. Honestly. Together.